Welcome back to Leveraging Leadership, where we unpack the art of business leadership. I'm your host, Emily Sander, Chief of Staff turned Executive Leadership Coach. This show is all about finding your points of greatest influence and leveraging them to better serve those around you. Do you or someone on your team have a communication issue? And specifically, is it where you or this person is passionate about something and that boils over to frustration, and you show up and you talk to people in a way that you don't intend to, and it's aggressive and it's abrupt and people don't like working with you? If you have that situation on your team, how do you diffuse that tension? How do you break through that contentious situation? And how do you change the perception, so of yourself, or let's say of your team member? So if you're in that situation and you got someone who maybe is good at their job, is technically proficient, but everyone braces themselves when he walks in the door for a meeting. Everyone is on eggshells when they're talking to him because they don't want to be the one who blows the fuse. And this person is good at what they do, but they can't get promoted because they can't work with anyone. In that situation, what do? Here's something that I found to be very effective. If that person is working on improving their communication, share that with the group. Share the fact they're working on it with the group. And that can totally rearrange the dynamics of that group. So what does that look like? So that could be something like you're at the team meeting, everyone's bracing themselves like, this guy again, gosh, eye roll. And he gets asked a question. And before he answers that question, he said, I will answer that. Before I start, I just want to say, I know that my communication is a problem, and I know that I can't continue doing it, and it's not the way that I'm wanting to show up, and I am actively working on this. I'm taking steps A, B, and I'm doing C. And I don't promise this will get better overnight, but it is something I'm actively working on, and there might be points where I need your help and I need your input and feedback that would really help me out. If someone says that, that completely changes the tone in that room. That completely deflates the hot air balloon that was in there before. People are hard pressed to deny someone help when they're like, I have this issue. I'm aware of it. I'm sorry. I'm working on it. Will you help me? You will be hard pressing. No, I won't help you. Most people go, oh my gosh, yes, of course. Like anything you need, of course, let me know how I can help. So that can completely rearrange the mindsets in that room. I have been on the receiving end of this, where I was the person going, gosh, let me grit my teeth. And if I have to say something that's going to get this person angry, but I have to say it because it's what I feel like should be said, I know I'm going to have to gear up and battle this person. So that was a situation. This person said almost exactly what I just said, a very close version of what I just said. And I will tell you, in an instant, my whole perception of him changed. My whole oh my gosh, let me help. Okay, if you're asking for help, of course, I'll do anything. And over time, slowly, we partnered on this. And we even got to the point where he and I were in this one ongoing type of client meeting. And he would usually blow his fuse in internal meetings, but sometimes it would happen in client meetings, which was disastrous, right? And he was like, I can't do this. Emily, you're in there. Can we come up with a signal or a code word? And what we came up with was, I would say, so-and-so, don't you have a call with X, Y, and Z? And X, Y, and Z was kind of a known figure, a known entity in the room. And so, of course, he would need to take the call with X, Y, and Z. And so I'd be like, hey, so-and-so, didn't you have a call with Matt at X, Y, and Z? Or did you need to call Matt back real quick? And that would give him a chance or an excuse to get up and leave the room, collect himself, and then come back, or leave the call and come back. And no one would question that he would go and take that call. And so he and I worked on that, and he worked on individual kind of signals or code words with other people in different situations. But I mean, I gotta tell you, the team rallied. Before it was this guy again, eye roll, and kind of talking behind his back about every time he does that. Now it's okay, how can we help this person? How can we step up and do our part to help? Completely change the dynamic of that situation. I had a client who was working on this, and we decided to have a code word for her that she would give to specific colleagues. And her code word was tomato. So she would get red like a tomato. And so she'd be like, can you just like slack me tomato or like whisper tomato? Or if the occasion calls for it, yell tomato, tomato, tomato across the room. And we decided to give this code word to specific people, not everyone, because we wanted to avoid people abusing it. So if she were just saying something where they happened to disagree and they were like shutting her down by saying tomato, we wanted to avoid that situation. Or if she was getting animated about something, but not out of the realm of professional, we didn't want people kind of pulling the trigger on tomato all the way around. So we picked people who were fairly objective or fairly neutral and wanted the best for her, but knew the situation. So that was one example. And she had mentioned that she was kind of gruff and abrasive and known for not being super touchy-feely. And she said, Emily, when I said that to the group, I felt extremely vulnerable. And so like kind of my voice and body language changed and people picked up on that and I saw them lean in. Normally when I would talk, people would brace themselves and kind of lean back and try to get away from me. And when I said that and was vulnerable, people leaned in. And so it literally changed people's body language in that meeting. And it is a vulnerable thing. And most of the time when you're vulnerable, people will reciprocate and people will engage with you at a different level. And by the way, I had I had another client who was British, and I explained he had a similar situation, and I explained this approach. And the first thing he said was like, "Emily, that's so un-British." And then he paused and he was like, "But it'll probably work because I'm dealing with Americans." And I was like, "Yes, it'll hit us right in the feels. We love our feelings and emotions and freedom." And he did that, and he said the same thing. Like, it completely changed my interactions with people. And with him, it was actually a point of he didn't want to do it in a group because I was too vulnerable and too un-British. But he picked certain people to talk to one-on-one first, and he said, "Look, I've actually burned these people a couple times, and I owe these people, like these 3 specific people, an apology. I'm going to go talk to them one-on-one and let them know what's going on. And then when I get to a point where I'm a little bit further down the road, I'm going to open this conversation up to a group if the opportunity presents itself or if I feel compelled to do so. But otherwise, I'm just going to keep it one-on-one." And I was like, that's a perfectly valid approach as well. But in all these cases, it just rearranges the whole dynamic and it can just like undercut, like in an instant, it can undercut everything that's been going on and diffuse it. So if you personally are in that situation, I would strongly encourage you to use this technique. If you have someone on your team who is working to overcome a communication issue like this, great. You can even take this approach and extrapolate it for different scenarios. So anything where you have a weakness or a growth area and you're working on it, you're actively working on it, which is key, by the way. If you're not actually working on this and you say it, it's going to work doubly against you. So don't do that. You actually have to be committed to improving in this area. But if you are, then I would say share that with people. So if you're working on this and maybe it's going to take some time and maybe it's not going to be readily apparent to external people or external parties, then sharing that with them can just take that relationship to a whole new level. And you can almost begin a new relationship on a new footing, a new grounding in that way. Okay, so if you would like to use this technique to diffuse a contentious situation or to change a perception on the dime, and you aren't quite sure how to do it, or you have some ideas, this is a really good idea. How do I, like, what's the actual talk track I say? Or do I say this individually, one-on-one first, or should I start with the group conversation? If you're working through any of those pieces, I would be happy to support you on a free 30-minute clarity call. And we can go through your specific situation and scenario and give you good, clear next steps. So the link for that is in the show notes, as always. Not a hidden sales call. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I just want to give you some ways to use this approach because I've seen it be so effective. I hope that you have great relationships with all of your colleagues. I hope that your communication is smooth and effective and as you intend every time. I hope that all of your team members are communicating, and I hope that everyone in your organization is identifying their growth areas and working on them early and often. And I will talk to you next week on Leveraging Leadership.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.